Alex, thanks so much for joining us today. And if you just joined us, feel free to text your introductions. I noticed that Kelly is here too. So great to see you here, Kelly. Vancouver, BC, and we got Mirjana Blokovic with Avaya, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Cool. And Doug Henry, online for community college. Great. So, Alex, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having us. This is exciting to present in a different virtual world. Thanks everyone for attending. So yeah, happy to share a bit about VirBELA, and we're pretty new, and we just launched with our first event. So good timing to share where we're at. So we're here looking at slide 1. We can just to give a little background of who I am. My name's Alex Howland. My background's in organizational psychology, so I'm not a tech guy. We work. This is my colleague Ron Rembish. Ron, do you want to say hello?
Hi, how are you doing? Also a psychologist, and out here in California, working along with Alex on VirBELA.
Right. So our background's in organizational psychology, so working with organizations around getting the right people in the door, and then developing both teams and individuals once they're in organizations. So Ron and I conceptualized the idea for VirBELA a couple of years ago when GMAC, which is the company that owns the GMAT exam, stands for the Graduate Management Admissions Council, held a competition a couple of years ago looking for the best ideas to improve graduate management education. And Ron and I submitted an idea around the lines that in today's global economy, MBA students should have experience working on multinational global teams. And we felt that a virtual platform would be a good platform to provide that practice for students. We were fortunate to be one of the winners of that competition, and then GMAC then had about $7 million to invest in some of the winning ideas for any university to take any of the winning ideas and implement them. So that's when Ron and I partnered with the RADY School of Management here at UCSD, and we submitted a grant and were awarded $1.7 million to create VirBELA. Can we go to the next slide? All right, so I kind of just explained this kind of our inception and how we came about. We got the grant a little over a year ago, and basically we went to the market looking for a virtual world platform that we could license and customize to meet our needs. And in the end, we decided to hire a team internal. I think Eric's here out in the audience. Eric, do you want to come up on stage? We found Eric Hill here, who's our lead developer, and Eric has been in Cal IT, the engineering school here at UCSD, developing virtual worlds for different purposes for a little while. Eric, do you want to say hello and a little bit about your background?
Actually, Eric, if you as in mute.
Hey everybody. Yeah, Alex pretty much nailed it. I've been a graduate student and a staff person at UCSD working in virtual worlds for a good number of years now.
Great. So yeah, some of his other virtual worlds are used in the art area and are displayed in museums throughout the world. So different project than what we created here, but it's been great to leverage some talent that we had internal here at UCSD. Okay, we can go on to the next slide, please. All right. So what is our technology? Basically, we've developed a a virtual world using Unity 3D. We have all the kind of standard features that you folks are familiar with in terms of a voice over IP system, private and group text chatting, 3D visuals. We're creating some instructor resources where they can easily bounce around different rooms, go in stealth mode to observe teams in action. Also trying to think about the analytics of user behavior and the type of assessment we can get just through behavior in the virtual environment. We've also created the ability to record and play back sessions, and we've implemented a business simulation into the environment. And what we did was leverage an existing business simulation. We worked very closely with a company called Tycoon Systems, or they also go by Industry Masters. And they have a number of web-based business simulations. And what we did is kind of tore apart their web-based version and display it in 3D, and then tie visuals that connect to the 2D interface. So you see, it's an automobile company. So for example, you manage 5 cars. So you see in your company those 5 different product lines. You see the number of inventory you have in terms of your cars. There's sustainability initiatives, and if your emission levels are too high, black smoke starts coming out of the factory. So we took a very successful business simulation already out there and are customizing it and putting it in 3D so it can support these multinational teams that we're trying to develop. We have things like web co-browsing, our own avatar system, and up on the screen is an example of a user profile that's kind of in a proof of concept state where you can click on someone's name in the list and see some information on that person. Next slide, please. So our education mission is to provide opportunities and resources for global MBA networking and collaboration. Again, the idea, innovation often lies between silos. Also, we live in a global economy, and why are students just working with students who are local to them? Can we give them an opportunity to network with some of their colleagues all over the world? Also, business simulations, I think, as Anders was mentioning, is great experiential learning. So students get to actually apply what they're learning in the classroom in a simulation. And we can manipulate time and whatnot, so the learning happens a lot quicker. They get feedback very quickly on their quarterly decisions rather than waiting 3 months. A quarter can be 30 minutes, and they see the results of their decisions. It's also less expensive than running a real company and seeing whether they have success or not. All right. Next slide, please. We also see corporate application here, and we're starting to get attention from some large corporations who are interested in using the platform. We can do things like run internal business simulation competitions. Again, with many teams working virtually, it's tough to develop real cohesive, effective teams. A lot of companies fly people in to do different team building activities or meetings or go to the ropes course, these types of things. But there isn't really a good solution over the internet, we don't think. But we think virtual worlds could provide that good experience that could really bring virtual teams together. Ron has been running assessment centers in quote-unquote real world for a number of years. And one of the things that we're looking at is, can we do assessment in the virtual world? So again, where we can observe user behavior in the environment and answer questions like, is this someone who we'd want on our virtual team? Do they have good business acumen? Are they a team player? Are they, how do they make decisions? So we can do that both the individual level as well as a team. So bring a team together, and how cohesive is that team? How risk adverse are they, or willing to take risks? Some of the things that we can look at. Also, we think, as probably many of you believe that and have experienced, that we can we can have much more immersive, engaging distance learning in these types of environments. That's about it. Is this a good place to stop, or should I keep plugging along here? Any questions at the moment?
Oh, this is really cool. I think we're all dying to see more of how the gameplay works.
Okay. So we go to the next slide, please. So we just launched VirBELA with a global business simulation competition where we had 30 students from 8 schools in 10 different countries competing in VirBELA on remote multinational teams. And no two people on a team were from the same university or same country, so they were, truly global teams. We can move on to the next slide, please. Their challenge was to take over a large global automobile manufacturer where the objective is to build sales, improve profitability, and maximize shareholder value. And they managed their company over 20 quarters. So again, this simulation is pretty complex in the sense that the 8 teams were actually competing against each other. So we'll see in a minute that we brought them all into a lecture hall. We did some orienting and some welcome and those sorts of things. And then they all went to their own business sim room where they were putting inputs into this simulation. Again, managing five cars, selecting sales price, all sorts of decisions, how much they're going to invest in marketing, how many they're going to produce in a quarter. They can invest in some sustainability initiatives to bring down their carbon accounting. It's a very detailed sim. And then those inputs go into the back end of the simulation and spits out results each quarter and how they're doing in the market, how much market share they have, their share price. They can do things like buy and sell shares. So we can go on to the next slide.
So Andrew in the audience here is asking which schools were involved in the rollout?
Good question. Can we go to the next slide?
Okay. Oh, there they are.
Yeah. So here are the schools. So we had some really great schools throughout the world. And these folks were bright. Again, I don't have so much of a business background, and listening to these folks and how they approached the sim was quite impressive. And they spent considerable time outside of our synchronous sessions, strategizing, doing competitor analysis through each sector, running financial models on the side in Excel. So quite smart people. Any other questions at the moment? All right, if we could go to the next slide, please. All right, so here's just an image of our lecture hall. A couple of things here that you probably have seen in maybe other virtual worlds, but wherever you are in this room, the screen always faces you. So where it says welcome is Google Present slides that we have up there, and I, as the presenter, could flip through those. We can present videos up there, web pages, these sorts of things. And the people in there were our 30 competitors from the 10 different countries. All right, we can go to the next slide, please. I think we just have probably a couple pictures here of the lecture hall. We named the lecture hall after GMAC, considering they're our funder. And I think there's one more picture of the lecture hall. Next slide. Yeah, here we go. So up in the middle, what's presenting is the winners. How you're doing against your competitors was based on market capitalization. So this was market cap over time. I don't know how well you can see it up here, but you can see there a lot of teams were really close, and then the winning team kind of took off, shut up, and really outperformed all the other competitors. At one point, they did fall into second place, and we really saw some changes in the team dynamics, but they kind of refocused and went back to their original strategy and did really well. All right, go to next slide, please. So after the lecture hall, each team went to their own we call this the team strategy and debrief room. Here was where teams could meet intimately in their teams of three or four, and they each were assigned a facilitator who helped lead team process in terms of didn't provide strategy, didn't really make suggestions, but worked through the process of okay, these were perfect strangers at the beginning of our competition. We did some icebreaker activities to get to know each other. They came up with a team name, these sorts of things. And then they competed in the business simulation room, which you'll see in a minute. And then at the end of each session, they'd come back here and they'd debrief the day. They'd have some strategy discussions. They'd work through conflict, and conflict certainly did come up on some teams. They focused on how they came to decisions and strategies around that. Some people in the business simulation made decisions as a unit. Other teams split apart and made decisions kind of separately. Again, something that couldn't have been done in a WebEx or something like that, but could be done in the 3D area. This room also had a shared Google Doc that all players could write on, as well as to the right there was again another slideshow that the facilitator could use for instructional purposes. And then we could also display information, like to the left we have Tuckman's team development model, the stages of team development.
So there was a question, Alex. The facilitators who observed them, were they sort of in stealth mode, or were they just standing there with their avatar visible to everyone?
Some did each method. We never were in stealth mode, kind of spying without them knowing. We let them know that, hey, we might go into stealth mode. We're here. We're watching. I'm just trying to stay out of your way. What we find happening for those who were in appearance was they're constantly looking for answers for the sim from their facilitator, and really we didn't want to answer any of those questions. We wanted all the decisions. I didn't mention we were giving away $50,000 for this competition, so there were big dollars at stake. So we didn't want the facilitators helping the teams in terms of their strategy in the sim. It was literally to observe and then observe team process and then debrief team process afterwards. They were also an intermediary. If any tech issues came up or anything, the facilitators could relay to our tech crew what was going on.
They were just walking around as avatars, and so they were clearly visible when they were observing.
Right, yeah, so some went into stealth mode and continued to walk around while others, were present.
So you have it possible to walk around sort of as an invisible avatar?
Yes, yep, it's just a command, stealth mode that only the facilitators could go into. The players couldn't go into that. And again, it wasn't anything scandalous. We told the players, hey, I might be invisible for a while.
Yeah, invisibility cloak.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we're working on facilitator resources too, in the sense of there's stealth mode, there's different camera angles, kind of like security camera setup. So, instead of walking around as an avatar, you see 4 different cameras from the BizSim room, so you can observe. You can bounce between rooms if need be to observe the different teams.
Alex, you might also want to mention that we can record all the sessions, each team, and record those for playback at a later time if we're doing any kind of research or wanting to see how the competition was played out by each team.
Right.
And,
Yeah, and
Andrew was also asking the size of the team size. I think you mentioned, was it how many on each team?
our goal was to have 8 teams of 4. Last minute, we had a couple of people that didn't work out. One person from Russia who last minute we found out wasn't actually an MBA student. So we fortunately had to drop him. And then, our process in recruitment was people applied, and then their kind of last chance to get in, they needed to demonstrate that they had the bandwidth and the hardware to run VirBELA. And one person didn't pass that tech check. She just didn't. She was in India and just didn't have the bandwidth where she was for it to be a good experience for her or her team. So we kind of had to drop her last minute, and it was just too late to replace her. So teams of 3 or 4. All right. I think we can go to the next slide. Or happy to take more questions right now. All right. So here's a shot of a team in their business sim room. Again, so every team had this room that looked identical, and they're at their small line of cars, and they're making decisions. So the white screens in the room are what used to be, one web page, 2D business simulation, and we've displayed it around the room. And in this picture, you see 3 of about probably 30 of these screens. So pretty complex sim. And then in the middle is kind of the representation of what's going on in their company. So for this small car, you can kind of see in the background there's one factory, meaning that they haven't upsized this line. If they do decide to expand, a new factory will be built. Right now they have 0 days of inventory, so there are no cars in their parking lot. Marketing is set low. You can't really see it in this picture, but there's billboards, so depending how much they spend on marketing, the size of their billboard and over their factories shrink or grow. Then there's cars spinning through the factory that's kind of right below the white screen, and that shows your production. So if you move your production up really high, cars spin through the factory really quickly. If you stop production, cars stop. The trees represent kind of this sustainability initiative. So as you invest more in sustainability, your environment becomes lusher, more green. And again, if things fall, the government sets emissions regulations, and if your average fleet emissions exceed that limit, black smoke starts to pour out of your factories. So in the middle is where they manage their 5 cars as they kind of move around the circle that's in the middle. And then on the exterior wall was a lot of information about the market and the company. So, you get a P&L, you got a dashboard where you can see how your revenue's doing, how your revenue's doing over time, your debt ratio, and very complex, detailed things. You can also see how you're doing it in the market against your competitors, how you're positioned in terms of sales price versus their sales price, what it costs for your company to produce a car versus them to produce a car. A lot of good, rich information. All right, I think we can.
Do you input your decisions on these boards then, or?
Yeah, so you input them on these boards, and you can't really see it, I don't think, here. But what we've also done is when they put their mouse over any of these white panels, they see each other's mouse movements. So we propagate the mouse movements. Anyone can take control of these, right? So it's a leaderless group in the sense that they have to decide who's moving bars and those sorts of things. Again, they can split up and each manage a different car, which some teams did, or they can go in order as a team, like this team's doing here, and making decisions as a unit.
That's a really cool way of 3D data visualization, very creative with the trees and the smoke and things like that. Not just show the data as numbers on a screen, but actually visualizing it in the 3D space. Huh?
Yeah, that's our goal, and think that that's important if we're going to leverage technologies like 3D. Maybe ideally, these are all PHP files that are broken up in the room. If the sim company had an API, we could even do more things, I think, in terms of how we display the sim. Eric or Ron, anything to add on that?
Yeah, we were to embed this sim. It was a web-based sim, and there was only so much we could do to gather the inputs, which were from these manipulating sliders. And as Alex said, if they expose more functionality through an API, we could do more in the 3D environment.
As I mentioned, the Industry Masters is who has this sim, and we work very closely with them. And they're located in Madrid and Germany currently. They're a pretty small organization, but really have great products. We'll be presenting with them later this month at the Immersive Education Conference in London.
So there's a question from the audience here about how what you created here compares with this platform, and I know this is the first time for you guys to be in here, but in general it's similar functionality, right? It's voice, and you have the third person view of the avatar as you're moving around. Or do you want to elaborate a little bit on what the similarities and differences might be from what we're experiencing in here?
Sure, I think so, and maybe these guys can help out. A lot of parallels, I'd say. We decided to create our own so we can continue to adapt and change, and not rely so much on a third party. This is built on the gaming engine Unreal, where we're building on the gaming engine Unity 3D. We're not completely web-based. There is a client download. Right now, I'd say Avaya makes it a little bit easier to get into the world than us. We have a bit of a download that people have to do, and unzip files, which some people have trouble with, and then log in. Other than that, it's a lot of similarity. Again, we have voice over IP and text chat. We're just starting to get more animations in. The visuals are a bit different. Our avatar system, our avatars look quite different. I don't know a ton in terms of what's leveraged in world, in terms of instead of us uploading PowerPoint slides, usually we use Google upload slides to Google Present, and then can access anything web-based in the 3D environment. Eric, what would you add, if anything?
Yeah, we're still working on our voice experience and the usability thing. I think, as Alex said, it is easier to get into this world currently in Avaya than our process, but we're working on that.
Yeah, we're a lot younger than Avaya, that's for sure. We've only been developing really since February of this year, but we're making really quick progress, and having really talented people like Eric help us along. We have 3 full-time developers on staff, and 2 full-time artists, and then a couple of part-time artists. We're fairly small, but what we've created is hopefully just the beginning. We have a long ways to go. I think we'd probably be happy to provide anyone an in-world demo if interested.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right. Other questions? No, we could go to the next.
The teams were playing, or maybe you're going to get to that. It's sort of turn-based. They're playing one quarter at a time, so they were standing around making decisions, and then you had a deadline for them when they have to enter it all, and then all the teams get together and see the outcome. Is that how it works?
Right. So we had a mix of synchronous and asynchronous sessions. So for the synchronous sessions, we had 4 3-hour sessions where all people were present at the same time. So they'd come to the lecture hall, they'd get a welcome, then they'd all go to their own team rooms, and they'd start playing quarters. And each quarter lasted, at the beginning, they started at like 30 or 40 minutes, and towards the end, we tapered down to 15 minutes. And each quarter, they have a timer in the top right of their screen, countdown of when the quarter will end. When the quarter ends, all the inputs are final. It goes into the back end of the business simulation and takes about 30 seconds, and then up come the results. So teams can see how they did the previous quarter, and immediately the next quarter begins, and they can start making inputs. So, in one of those 3-hour synchronous sessions, they'd go through 3 to 6 quarters. Again, 3 first time, probably 6 the last session. But then we had a couple asynchronous quarters where we said, okay, that's the end of today. You can all leave now. But the business simulation is going to advance a quarter on Tuesday at midnight UTC time. So you all need to find a time at your own time to put in your inputs. So some teams spent, an hour on that. Some teams, might have had 2 people do it because the others weren't available, but trying to converse over the internet. And once they set their inputs, okay, those inputs were whatever the last input was when the sim advanced was final input. So you could do it right away, or you could wait. We also have a news ticker, which shows what other teams are doing. So there was strategy in either trying to, scale up, be the first to scale up and kind of economies of scale. There was also strategy of, okay, let's sit back, wait, see what our competitors do, and respond.
There were also several embedded announcements along the game where CO2 emissions, the standards were tightened and made more difficult, which had to affect the way they would go to the market with specific cars. We embedded a marketing thing where they had to come up with a company slogan, a marketing slogan. And you can embed a variety of other things. We looked at embedding ethical issues or a strike at a factory. So you could, as they're playing, you can embed a variety of different kinds of activities or events.
So we get a question from Peter here. How did the first wave of users like working in this 3D environment? Did they find it easy, difficult, fun, or annoying? And how long did it take them to master the user interface?
Yeah, for our first event, we thought it went very well. I think most people didn't have any experience in using the 3D world, and getting feedback. What was really great was when we asked for feedback, it wasn't, hey, really cool avatars, hey, 3D experience is really cool. It was they had really engaged as a team. So they had made kind of maybe lifelong friends, people, friends that they'll keep in touch with after the competition. They also felt it was a real experience of applying what they're getting in the classroom. Some of the teams really went through some conflict and had some tough times. There was yelling and shouting at times. They brought their real selves to this environment, so they got a sense of how they show up on a virtual team. Otherwise, they seem to master it pretty quickly. We have things like Run, and they're all running around in different Zoom options, and they could work through it pretty quickly. We try to keep the interface pretty simple, so it's user friendly.
And so the teams were global then, or were they representing each school? Or?
No, so they were global. So no two people from the same university or country were on a team together. So our winning team, we had a student from the London Business School, the Indian Institute of Management, NCAD, which is in France and Singapore. I don't remember where the player was from. And then, where was the fourth person from? Waseda in Tokyo.
Wow. Andrew is asking, what were the major challenges, those resolved and still outstanding challenges?
In terms of the technology, in terms of the experience?
Yeah, both.
Both. All right. The technology, we're still relying on people's hardware and bandwidth issues. So at times there were voice issues cutting out. People had to log off, log back on. And it's frustrating knowing that you can't really do anything about it. If they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the bandwidth. So that was a little bit of a struggle, but we made that a rule up front that the technology is the same. If there are any tech issues, not really an excuse. We're not going to freeze the competition. We're going to continue to move along. So students were pretty good about that. Any situation like this where you're in competition or giving away money, non-performing teams will look for an external locus of control, if you will. Why are we losing? It must be the technology's fault. Your rules, it wasn't even mistakes in the technology, but we had an onboarding packet, which was a 3D PDF document with the rules, and one thing wasn't consistent with how the sim actually works. So they were up in arms with us on that, just looking for excuses. But I think we're gonna experience that always, and it's also a good assessment point to see the teams that take ownership of their performance versus those who try to put it on some external group. In terms of the technology, again, I'd like to work towards making kind of the download and getting in the world a little bit easier. We did tech checks before the competition individually with each player, which was crucial. And I think we'd continue to do that, but it's time intensive. Anything else, Ron or Eric?
I think we were pretty pleased with the stability of the platform. When we looked at other platforms before we developed VirBELA, we were sometimes frustrated that you would get a lock screen or you couldn't move around. You wouldn't be able to navigate. So we found that the platform itself was a good one and has a lot more opportunities to build on and expand on. The simulation, I think folks did like playing the game. It was challenging enough and difficult enough that they just couldn't breeze through it, and it created enough challenge that you got to see some team dynamics with conflict and decision making and how people did their analytical work. So we liked the simulation itself. I think we have some ideas about how we could improve it or add to it, but in general, the platform and the simulation we were happy with. The idea that we were doing things globally, I think, also met our expectations. People, in a social way, got to know each other as well. During any downtime or free time, as I was visiting rooms, the participants would want to learn about each other. Where were they born? What did they do? A lot of background. And so you see an opportunity, and we didn't build enough of this into it yet, for social interaction and getting a greater understanding of each other and perhaps of their cultures. And we had some ideas of how we would do that, but when we were running it the first time, we didn't want to complicate things too much.
So there's a question here, from Andrew, whether you evaluated any other platforms before you went with Unity?
So we developed, a kind of proof of concept space in OpenSim. I looked at Second Life. We looked at Avaya, and we really liked Avaya, and I think we decided that we couldn't afford it long term in terms of continuing to do customization work and kind of the scale that we wanted to go towards.
We looked at Olive.
Looked at Olive, yep, with SAIC. Who else? There was another group.
Wonder School.
Yep, Open Wonderland or Wonder School. We looked at, and what we liked about Unity, the ability to develop for across platforms. We thought was great. Right now, we're on PC and Mac, and we do have a client download, but I think we want to work towards having some offerings that could be done completely over the web, on a tablet or maybe even smartphone eventually. So pretty thorough analysis. Maybe we could have spent longer and more money, but given we had a 2-year grant, we tried to move along. And really, we've been quite happy with Unity. And again, Eric and his team are doing amazing stuff, I think, with it. I think the 3D visuals, and rendering are great in the environment. And these guys are quickly coming, given that we only started developing in February, how much this team has accomplished, I think is pretty commendable.
Wow, that's amazing. And of course, in Unity, you have to do a lot of custom development to get the multiplayer capabilities and voice and avatar picker and all that. Did you say that you worked with some existing platform for that, or it was all custom developed from scratch by your team?
Well, we use some existing plugins to help, but we did have to touch the voice system. We did a lot of work on that custom. And getting presenting the web pages in to present.
Right.
Took a lot of custom work. And the networking was custom, using approaches that other people had done with Unity.
So you've probably created, I would think, the most sophisticated multiplayer Unity platform here. I haven't seen anything with, for instance, with web boards in Unity for multiplayer. Are you planning on making this available in any form for others to develop in?
Good question. We're trying to figure some of that out as well in terms of how to be sustainable, past our grant, and we're certainly looking at offering services through the platform. Whether at some point we offer opportunities, for others to develop with our technology, I think we're still working through. Some have requested, custom areas or custom simulations, and we're considering that as well.
A number of the universities are also interested in looking at the platform for course deliveries and seminars and workshops, and we're talking with them as well. So there's been a lot of interest from both the corporate side and the academic side so far, and we also think that consultants might want to use the environment to do whatever it is that they do in terms of their consulting work.
Yeah, you definitely have a gem here. It's a platform that a lot of people will be interested in, doing everything from doing other types of simulations, but also just for, as you said, for collaboration and classroom space.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, happy to have discussions with anyone, and happy to demo and get people in the environment and show where it's at now and kind of where it's headed.
But the grant was to run this one simulation, and so you've completed it, and now you're kind of evaluating what you're going to do next, or?
Yeah, not really. I mean, yes, this was our big launch, but our mission to kind of build a global MBA community isn't over. You know, this was just the first step. So we will run other activities. For example, our funder does a university fair for MBA programs where they have right now they use a 2D platform, you know, and they're interested in hosting it next time in here. There are other groups, other professors working across universities and using things like Google Hangout and GoToMeeting and whatnot, and they're talking about using our environment. So we'll still provide more to the graduate management community to come, but we also are looking at corporate clients as well. I just got a message. I think we're close to the end.
Yeah, we got 10 more minutes here.
All right. Yeah, we have a couple more. I think the rest are pretty much just images. If we want to look through them. Yeah. You know, again, this is the team. Actually, the confetti. This is one of the winning teams. The confetti actually wasn't in World. We put that on top afterwards. But it is a good idea. We do want to put in confetti, and we actually, developers just developed a dance move for the avatars, which is quite hilarious, which we'll bring in as well.
Yeah, we did with Andrew, who's in the audience here, a simulation with fireworks at the end.
Is there another question that just came in?
That was just a comment on the firework.
Okay. So here's a campus which actually isn't even open yet. You know, I kind of designed a campus, but you can walk through things right now. Features of co-creation for the teams. I'm not sure what's meant by that question.
Oh, okay. So yeah, building objects and things in the 3D. Obviously, Unity you couldn't really probably do any real creation in the world, right?
Right. So yeah, that's where we think OpenSim and Second Life probably handle a lot better than what we can handle, but it really isn't our objective. Given our target audience being kind of MBA students, I think we are interested in their feedback in terms of what they'd like to see in this environment, and I think we'd create it for them. We're thinking of each university has clubs, for example, consulting clubs, women in leadership, entrepreneur clubs, and we're saying, can we develop resources in this campus that could support a global club in some of these areas and have members from all over. So we are very interested in our users' kind of feedback and what they want to see in the world. We don't see them as necessarily the creators of those environments, given most of their backgrounds. And maybe I'm wrong with that assumption, but that's kind of are feeling at the moment. So as I was mentioning, the campus is there and we can traverse it, but you can hardly walk through things and it's not complete. So for the competition, people could view it, but they couldn't get out to it. But this was a team after they had been in the simulation, meeting as a group in debriefing with their facilitator, who's there in the middle with the bubble over her head. And what was interesting is how they positioned themselves. At this point, the gentleman to the right wasn't fully engaged yet on the team. He was late to pass his tech check. He got new hardware kind of right before the competition started, and there was clear disconnect between the other three and him. And it was interesting to watch how they placed each other in the environment. We had things like virtual hugs, which is really just the avatars running into each other because we don't have the animation for that yet. But it was interesting to watch the dynamics of the avatars, and myself and Ron are somewhat new to virtual worlds, so watching this behavior was pretty powerful for us, whereas many of you maybe have been seeing it for years. You can go to the next slide if you'd like. So here, after each day of the competition, because players couldn't get out to the campus, our facilitators could. So this is where we'd huddle after each day of the competition and, debrief how the day went and how the teams were performing and operating together. And we can go to the next slide. And, we have an avatar customization system, and I'd consider that it's at 1.0 right now, but we're close to ready to having 2.0 in terms of the number of customizations that you can do, as well as some of the animations that the avatars will be able to handle. And then I think that might be the last slide, at least in this set. I'm happy to answer any other questions. I know we're almost out of time here. Or if Eric or Ron want to add anything. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, if anybody out there has interesting platforms to look at or applications, we'd love to chat with you all and hopefully form a community of folks who are working in this world. We're all pioneers and we're all learning as we go along, and would love to hear what you all are involved with, as well as sharing what we're doing.
And we're not used to talking to folks with lots of experience, so it would be great to hear a lot more from you guys as well.
This is fascinating. So there's no publicly available version of this. We would have to contact you and set up a time for a tour.
Right, correct. Currently.
Yeah, I think everyone here would be really interested in that. This is fascinating. It's these type of simulations, of course, have been done in the physical world since really, I think, started early 1980s, and it's interesting how they continued for the most part to be run just in physical environments where you break out in conference rooms and then get together, and the ability to do it virtually and then add 3D visualizations and other things that you really couldn't do in a physical world is really interesting. That
Correct.
That it has. I'm actually kind of stunned that it hasn't been done before. It seems like such an obvious application of the 3D virtual world technology. So it's great that you guys have finally broken the ice and done it.
Sure.
Nice.
Thank you. We've seen a lot in the military application of simulations for training, and those are getting more and more impressive in their sophistication. So we may be borrowing some things that have been done in that area and applying it into the business world and academic world.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming. This was awesome. Really interesting presentation. And thanks everyone for joining us, and hope to see you next week. There's going to be a different link next week. We're going to have a demo of a hospital simulation in Avaya Live Engage. So look for the Facebook page or Google Plus page for the link. And also if you get in here, we'll have posters here that will take you over there. So it's going to be an actual hands-on demonstration of a hospital simulation that for Lehigh Valley Health Network there. I think you'll all find interesting. So we got a great schedule for you every Thursday here. Please come back and see us every week. And thank you so much, Alex, and your team here.
Thank you very much for having us.
This is great.